The two sisters had just finished swimming when they suddenly noticed something glimmering at the bottom of the pool. To their shock, it was a massive diamond ring. The moment Bree laid eyes on it, she was instantly blinded by greed. Seeing that no one else was around, she dove straight into the pool. Her plan was to claim the giant diamond ring for herself. But no matter how hard she pulled, the ring wouldn't budge an inch. As Bree stayed underwater for longer than expected, Jonna grew worried, so she quickly plunged in after her. She figured they could work together to pry the ring out. But just then, Jonna's hair got caught in the pool grate. Seeing this, Bree had no choice but to stop and help free her sister's hair. What they didn't know was that the pool manager upstairs hadn't noticed anything strange happening below. Assuming the place was empty, he simply flipped the switch. The pool's retractable cover began to slowly slide into place. Underwater, Bree immediately sensed something was wrong. Panicking, she yanked on Jonna's hair with all her might, desperate to pull her up. As the cover crept closer to sealing shut, Bree gave one final tug. She finally freed Jonna's hair. The two of them rushed toward the edge of the pool, but it was too late. The pool cover had already sealed completely shut. The moment they realized it, their hearts sank. They never imagined a swimming pool could be equipped with such a cover. Terrified, they banged on the cover and screamed for help. But no matter how loud they yelled, no one was there to hear them. The entire facility was now completely empty. Even the only staff member had already clocked out for the day. It just so happened to be a Friday. The pool would remain closed through the weekend Saturday and Sunday. It wouldn't reopen until Monday. If they stayed in the water without food or drink for 2 full days, there was no doubt they would die. After a moment of panic, they tried to calm themselves. Then they decided to work together and try to force open the cover, but it was all in vain. Jonna started blaming Bree for being blinded by greed. She claimed it was Bree's fault they were trapped, but Bree fired back, saying it was Jonna who ruined everything. If she hadn't jumped in too, at least one of them could have escaped. The two began swimming around the pool, hoping to find another way out. They searched the entire perimeter, but the pool was sealed tight from every angle. All they found was an old swimsuit and a piece of plastic board. Just then, Jonna noticed a small hole near the edge of the cover, but the hole was far too tiny. They tried everything they could to widen it, but it didn't budge. Bree then tried cutting at the cover with the plastic board, but no matter how much strength they used, the pool cover remained completely unscathed. Jonna finally broke down emotionally, convinced the diamond ring was the root of all their problems. But the moment the ring was mentioned again, Bree, driven by greed, suddenly remembered it was still stuck at the bottom. She immediately dove back into the deep end, and this time, she successfully pulled the giant diamond ring free. But just then, she noticed something strange. The drain grate at the bottom seemed a little loose. She thought maybe it could be their way out. She summoned all her strength and tried to yank it off, but no matter how hard she pulled, the grate wouldn't budge an inch. Defeated, she swam back to the surface to discuss their next move with Jonna. Just then, a ringtone suddenly echoed from the edge of the pool. It was Bree's boyfriend calling her cell phone. The phone was only a few feet away, but there was no way to reach it. Both sisters felt the crushing weight of despair. With each passing second, the sky grew darker, the pool lights automatically shut off, and the two of them were swallowed by complete darkness. The water grew colder by the minute, but things took an even worse turn. Bree's face suddenly went pale. Her body started to weaken. It turned out Bree had diabetes. She needed an insulin injection immediately, or she would soon lose consciousness. But the life-saving medication was in her bag on the other side of the pool cover. Realizing the urgency of the situation, Jonna grabbed the plastic board and began slicing at the cover with all her might. Just then, a strange noise came from above. The pool lights flickered back on. It turned out the facility's janitor, Clara, had come in for her cleaning shift. The sisters saw hope and began pounding on the cover, screaming for help. Their desperate cries finally caught Clara's attention. For a moment, they believed they were finally going to be saved, but to their shock, Clara walked right past the pool and headed toward their bags. She casually pulled cash from their wallets, then removed the bank cards. After glancing toward the security camera in the corner, she walked straight into the surveillance room, and one by one, she shut off every single camera. She then returned to the poolside and looked down at the trapped sisters. She calmly explained that she had just been released from prison. She had no money, no home, and nothing left. If they wanted to be rescued, she said, they'd have to hand over their bank card pins. The sisters were furious. They accused her of blackmail and extortion. Jonna screamed every insult she could think of. Seeing that the girls refused to cooperate, Clara decided to teach them a lesson. She switched off the facility lights again. Then she turned off the pool's heating system, forcing the sisters to feel the full weight of the darkness and cold. When faced with a choice between money and life, Bree finally caved. Clara, now holding the pin, turned and walked away, but since she had also shut off the pool's heating system, the two girls quickly began shivering from the cold. To make matters worse, Bree's diabetes kicked in. The life-saving insulin was in the bag just above the sealed pool. Watching Bree suffer in pain, Jana's heart ached. She knew they couldn't just sit and wait for death, so she picked up the plastic panel and banged on the cover, hoping to draw Clara's attention. Little did she know, Clara was hiding in the shadows, eavesdropping the entire time. Jana demanded to know why Clara took the money but refused to help. But Clara coldly replied that a few $100 wasn't even enough to feed her. She said there was no way she'd risk herself for that kind of money. Then she turned and walked away, leaving the two sisters completely devastated. Fueled by rage, Jana decided she would get back at the greedy woman. She quietly began sharpening the edge of the plastic piece. Knowing Clara cared only about money, she lied and said she wanted to reveal where she had hidden more cash. Sure enough, Clara took the bait. At just the right moment, Jana struck, plunging the sharp edge into Clara's ear. Clara screamed in agony. The sisters finally got some payback, but they had also pushed Clara completely over the edge. Furious, Clara vowed to make them pay. She stormed over to the control room and turned on the water circulation system. Within seconds, powerful jets of water blasted into the pool. The sisters panicked. They tried desperately to block the water inlets, but the pressure was simply too much. Bree, weak from her illness and the cold, eventually lost consciousness. Terrified, Jana grabbed Bree and dragged her toward the small vent. She shouted to Clara, pleading for forgiveness, begging her to show mercy and let them live. Clara, realizing someone could actually die, rushed back to the control panel. She shut down the water circulation. For a moment, it seemed Clara might finally show them some compassion, but instead, she returned to the pool and issued another threat. She demanded they hand over the diamond ring. In exchange, she promised to free them, left with no choice but to preserve their lives. The sisters gave up the hard-won diamond ring. They passed it up through the vent to Clara, and promised they would never call the police. After getting what she wanted, Clara actually kept her word. She returned to the control room and entered the code to open the pool cover, but to her horror, nothing happened. It was only then that she realized the old, malfunctioning machine had completely failed. With no other options, Clara went back to the pool. She told the sisters that the cover system had broken down. There was nothing else she could do now, and she couldn't call the police either, because she had just been released from prison. If she got caught again, she'd spend the rest of her life behind bars. With that, she left the desperate girls behind, and walked away from the pool without looking back. The sisters were now truly hopeless. Bree's condition was growing more and more critical with every passing second. Determined to survive, Jana dove down to the bottom of the pool with all her strength. Her only hope now was the metal grate on the drain. Maybe, just maybe, she could use it to break through the cover above. With that thought, she began pulling at the grate with everything she had, but the grate didn't budge even a little. Still, with no other options, she kept trying. Every time she ran out of air, she would resurface for a breath, then dive back deep. Her hands clutched the grate tightly, pulling with all her might, but no matter how hard she tried, it wouldn't move. Exhausted and helpless, she surfaced again, but by then, Bree had already lost consciousness. Time was running out. Jana grabbed the worn-out swimsuit nearby, then dove down again and wrapped it tightly around the grate. Using the fabric to increase her grip, she summoned every ounce of willpower to pull, and at last, she managed to rip the grate free. But Bree was now on the brink of death, completely unconscious. Desperate, Jana performed mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Then, holding the grate in her hands, she pounded on the pool cover with all her strength. Finally, a crack formed in the cover. Through that narrow opening, the sisters were able to escape. Jana immediately injected Bree with her insulin. After a long and anxious wait, Bree finally woke up safe and sound. Just when the two thought their nightmare was over, Clara suddenly returned. She had a feeling the girls might escape, and to make sure they didn't report her, she came back to silence them for good. Jana pleaded with her desperately, swearing she wouldn't call the police, staring at the two sisters who had fought so fiercely to survive. Clara was finally moved. She slowly lowered her weapon and handed the diamond ring back to them. True to her word, Shauna urged Clara to leave quickly, then she called for help. Moments later, an ambulance arrived. Bree was finally out of danger, and after everything they had endured, the bond between the sisters had never been stronger. With that, the story came to a close.